I think that should be the one.
Jesus Christ.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 5 of my podcast, Beyond the Spotlight. I'm here today with...
Fernando Garavito.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was born in Tucson, Arizona. I've lived all my life in Mexico, in Nogales. I came to New York City in 2021 to go to acting school. That's where we met. We've worked together now, and it's been fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
We've become friends.
So today we're going to be talking about the difference between stage and theater.
Yeah.
So we have a couple questions to help us stay structured and on topic. So the first one, difference in rehearsal process between filming versus theater.
I think for me, I would much rather have, if I had to choose, I'd go for a theater rehearsal.
Theater rehearsal?
I think because when you're rehearsing for film, it's much less natural because sometimes you have to stand somewhere that you're like, is this the right position for me? And they're like, yeah, on camera, it'll look like right or fine or whatever.
Right.
But it's very much like, okay, I have to stand in a certain way. The light has to hit me in a certain way. And I have to deliver it like this, and this, because the camera gives me that, like, you just can only do here. So rehearsal, I think, if you start off like a theater rehearsal that is so free, even though the director wants you in certain places, it's still much more free, I think, in my opinion.
I think with like theater rehearsals, you have the luxury of having like so many of them, so like weeks leading up to the performance, you have all these rehearsals, so you really know like the play beginning to end.
Yeah.
And then that's pretty much it. Whereas I think for like TV and film, it's a lot more cut up.
Yeah.
So like one day we'll be shooting this scene, the next day we'll be shooting this scene.
And then you'll get rewrites. Like with plays, it'll happen if it's a new play. You know? But if it's Death of a Salesman, it's the same play forever. But now with a movie, it's like, oh, it's an original movie, or it's not, maybe an adaptation or whatever. There could be rewrites every day. So maybe you rehearsed this whole movie 2 months ago, and now it's like, oh, they cut up half of the scenes, and it's like completely different ballgame.
Pretty much. Yeah, also for TV and film, I think the main thing is just learning your lines. Yeah. Memorizing your lines, and then once you get there, it's kind of like an on-the-spot thing. They'll tell you, because sometimes it's like the very first time you meet your co-partner or whatever, the person that you're acting with, and it's like, okay, we want you to do it like this, and it's like you just have to like immediately
find that connection,
input the direction, and do that. Whereas with theater, it's like you have time to
you get to like build the rapport,
to build the character work and to build your craft and all that.
And with film, sometimes it'll be like, okay, you get the pages today. Go to your trailer, to wherever you're sitting down and like learn these lines, and just be like, okay, this is what we're gonna do today. How do I find that emotional connection that I've been rehearsing with? Of like, oh, this is the character I've developed, and now that I just got this new thing, how do I embody all of that I've rehearsed into today's?
I also think it's easier with theater. So because you usually rehearse like weeks before the performance, it's also you get closer to your director, you get closer to your fellow castmates. You have that time to build a connection and like build relationships with them. Whereas with TV and film, like I said, unless you know the person prior, it's usually you meet them on the day, you do your thing, and that's it.
That's it. And it's like it's all a team effort, both of them, but it's very much a different team effort in the way of like specifically in rehearsals, because with theater rehearsals you mostly just rehearse with the director, and then sometimes the team will come in and see the rehearsals. And with film, it's like you rehearse with just the director, and then day of you gotta work around this whole team that's been working without you, and now you gotta create a team with them. So it's like there's pros and cons to both of them, and it also depends a lot on like the material you're working on.
True. Yeah. True. Performing for a live audience versus performing for a camera.
Give me a live audience.
You like a live audience?
I love a live audience. I've been watching a lot of old like late show videos, like Letterman, Conan O'Brien, stuff like that, and just like how I really identify myself because they turn on when they're in front of an audience. But at the same time, for me, it's terrifying to do myself in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
If I'm at a party and there's karaoke, they'll be like, "Oh, you gotta sing," and I'm like, I don't know, and they're like, "But you do it in front of so many people. That's not
me." It's just different.
It's completely different. It's an audience,
I agree with that.
and there's like an immediate response, even when it's a drama. that there's a lot of like silences throughout the show with the audience. With a comedy, you got an immediate response.
Right.
But with a drama, it just something changes in the room that you're like, oh, okay, they're on with me. They're on this ride with me.
Right.
It's not just, well, we'll see, like with film. You perform, and sometimes, even if it's a comedy, people won't laugh because you can't have those laughs on camera.
Right.
So it'll be just like,
it's a different
trust
energy.
yourself. Yeah,
it's such a different energy when you're doing it. I think personally for me, like when I'm acting on screen and when I'm acting in theater, it's so different.
Oh yeah,
like
completely.
My acting is much different. First of all, on stage, I have to really project my voice, right, so that the very last person in the back can hear you. Also, like my body language, my gestures, they have to be a lot bigger, kind of, but still keeping it natural.
Yeah.
Keeping it natural, keeping it like organic and stuff. But
there's like it's more real than what's real in theater.
Exactly.
Like even though it's like it looks exaggerated, but when you're an audience, it's like, oh yeah, that's what people do.
It just makes sense. Whereas on camera, the camera lens is just so magnified. So like the smallest little facial expression,
camera catches everything.
Camera catches everything. The smallest like lip twitch or like an eyebrow raise,
and it can be just like oh, that means something. You know,
exactly.
It has to be so subtle.
It catches everything. Like I just can't say it enough. I also think that with like the difference between theater and screen is like it depends on the audience, right? Oh, it depends on genre. So if I'm doing a comedy, I prefer to do it in front of a live audience because getting that reaction from the audience and just like feeling the energy that they're like giving you and you're giving them, it is addicting. It's so addicting. I mean, you can still do it in film.
Yeah, of course.
Like there's the camera people or the boom ups are like laughing behind the scene, but it's like in the scene you just have to be very kind of like, you can't break character.
Yeah, you have to be very in it. And in comedy, there's a little in comedy and theater, there's wiggle room.
Right, there is wiggle room.
Yeah, where it's like you get the audience and you're like, yeah, that was me. I did that. It feels good, but it's like you gotta still focus.
Exactly.
But there's wiggle room and whatever. I think in theater.
Yeah, I think a lot of people also ask me like which one's more natural, and that's always a really difficult question to answer because a lot of times I feel like for me doing theater is more natural.
Yeah,
because you're performing a play, you're telling a story from beginning to end in like a structured way.
Yeah,
and then that's it. Whereas with TV and film, it's like, okay, today we're gonna film the middle scene, tomorrow we're gonna film the beginning scene, and it's like it's just like depending on
you're just jumping all around.
You're jumping all around, and then it's like trying to input that moment before and like circumstances. It's sometimes just like
even with like self tapes,
it muddles your head up.
It affects like that, and like self tapes, you gotta do all of that work to like the moment before and the moment after. Like where do I want to get? And with film, it's like it's a self tape every day of a different scene.
Exactly.
Like putting it in student terms, to put it like in school and stuff. You just gotta get there every time. Every time you gotta get there and like acknowledging what has been filmed, what isn't filmed, what should we film and what we're not gonna film. It's all like floating around and your performance is enhanced or affected by it because as an actor you have to be just jumping up and down and all around to be getting to these different moments when you're filming versus theater that it's like a train.
Yeah. You're just like, okay, I just had the scene where I had an argument with my boyfriend and now I'm going back and we're having, I don't know, this and that. So you already know what's happening and there's like, it's just a flow going through. Whereas I think with TV and film, it lacks a little bit. Like I've had multiple times where I would say to the director, like, can we start filming from here? Because you're asking me to start filming at a point where I'm like the maddest I could possibly be, but I need to get there. If you want it to look real and you want it to look realistic, I need to get there. So you have to give me some time.
Just give me a perspective.
Just give me like, let's just get there.
Yeah.
When it comes to like intimate scenes, a lot of times, right?
Yeah.
People say like, oh my God, how can you do that on stage in front of like this many people? Like how can you kiss someone on stage? It's supposed to be like a private moment, but the whole point is that the fourth wall is exposed. And a lot of times I feel more intimate on stage as opposed to on camera, even though there's less people.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I have to say the amount of lights shining in my face, I can't even see the audience. Yeah. I cannot even see the audience.
And it's your responsibility also as an actor, like to not put them there.
And it's also my responsibility to not put them there. However, when I'm filming, it's like
everything.
The camera is like right
Right
there,
there.
and then you have the boom ops, and then you have the intimacy choreographer, and
Whomever's in the room, and
everyone
everyone's
is like,
like, yeah, this is just the job,
they're
you know?
watching your every move, and it's like sometimes it's very invasive, you know. Like I was once doing a intimate scene on camera, and the person was like, I'm gonna put the camera right here, and I was like,
Oh,
okay,
okay.
that's okay. So then it's like, you know, you have to then try and work around
Yeah.
a big contraption like right here, and it's like trying not to like hit it. So like, oh, and then that brings me into I'm gonna shut up. Oh, because that's our next question. So leading up to our next question, blocking on
Mhm.
stage versus screen is one less natural.
I like coming back to that point. I think it's blocking on camera is less natural, completely, because sometimes you'll have to stand in a weird position, but
Mhm.
it's the light is hitting you so good right now that it's like we're gonna
They're
film
like,
from
don't
here.
move, don't
Don't move,
move,
don't move.
don't move a muscle, and for
And
continuity.
oh my god, I was about to say that, like, I was one time, and it's such a stupid example. We were doing a recreation of the scene from Whiplash where he's like drumming and he's like, okay, what's this note? What's this note? Play
Yeah.
this part from the beginning. And we're recreating that. And just like how I had to stand to, like, okay, what about this? And pointing out the sheet music. But then when we had to film the inserts, I was standing like completely in another angle with my hand like completely just like, okay, and go. What about this? What about this? Like, so
It's
weird, but
not
it's hitting
natural.
perfectly and
It's
it works
not natural.
perfectly.
It works perfectly then for the
Of
filmmaker, and
course.
then when you're
Yeah.
editing, it just makes sense. And then for the audience member
Yeah.
watching the film, it just makes sense, right? But as an actor, having to do that and having to, so for example, if I'm having a conversation with you and they're like filming the wide shot,
Yeah.
and then they want to do a close up, I'm most probably not even in the scene.
Uh-huh.
I'll probably be behind the camera because the camera is going to be
It's
me,
gonna be right here, yeah.
because it's like, I don't know, my POV.
Yeah.
And then vice versa. So I once also had a scene where I was like very heated, and I was having like an argument, right, with my boyfriend, my fiance. And the whole point was like, obviously when you're mad, you know, you use your hands a lot, or like you're just angry, and the camera person was doing like an over the shoulder, and he was like, can you not move your hands? Just stay
Oh
still.
my god, yeah.
I'm like, okay. So then I basically have to like be saying all this stuff like, I hate you, I never want to be with you ever again, blah blah blah. But I'm like not moving a muscle because they just about had like my hair and my shoulder, and they had a perfect view of him. But me, on the other hand, I just had to be completely still. But then obviously doing the scene, because you know your partner has to work off of you in order to, you know, their reactions and stuff. I still have to.
You still have to emote and
I
have
still
that
have
journey.
to give him my all, but just, you know, my physically, I'm a little bit more constrained.
And it has to be that, like, the same journey. That's like, it has to be all of that just constrained to here. Because with the camera, it just, and anything can add to the camera. You know, any blocking can be your eye twitched by accident, and people can be like, "Oh, was that saying something?"
Right.
Whereas in theater, you have to say what you mean and mean what you say. Exactly. I mean, of course, there's like subtext, like, "Oh, what is this actually?" But if you're saying something, you got to put that action on it.
Right.
You got to put an action on it and have that, I like that blocking of, find a reason. The director telling you, "Oh, because that's where the light hits," is not a good reason in theater.
Right.
You gotta find, as an actor, your reason. Okay, why does my character get there?
Yeah.
How does my character get there? And it sounds so stupid, but
it makes sense.
That's what makes the difference between
exactly.
a show where you can see the directors saying like, okay, walk here, be angry, leave, versus like, okay, we're gonna need you here because I like some directors will be like, I like how the light looks there, and we don't have to move it again, so just land there.
Sometimes it's just,
and it'll be like, oh crap, what do I? Okay, how do and that's the fun part of blocking that idea of, oh, this isn't just because the light hits, it's because my character gets there for this reason.
I think the main thing for me for stage is they'll just be like, don't have your back to the audience. So like you always have to like cheat a little bit to the audience. But I think after a while it becomes natural. Like you just naturally
and it's changed a lot
turn
also.
Towards, it also depends on the theater.
Yeah, and a lot of directors, like, sometimes they don't care if you give the back to the audience some moments.
Right.
As long as as long as it's there's an intention to it. Sometimes I remember doing, I don't know what show, but the director was like, don't worry if you give them your back. And I was just standing like this talking to someone. It's like, Fernando, just turn to the side and talk to this person. I'm like, but it's the theater. I have to be like this, you know? It's so stupid how it all also depends on who you're working with and
Right.
how that naturality gets there. Because some directors will be very strict, like, no, I need you to be angry there.
Right.
And some directors will be like, just get there if you can. So just finding your way into it is always very magical in theater, in my opinion.
I also had a performance once in a butterfly theater. Do you know what a butterfly theater is?
No, I do not.
So it's basically this is the stage, and then there's an audience on this side and an audience on this side.
Okay.
So on both sides.
Okay.
So it's like if I had my back to them, I was showing my front to them. So it was kind of like a constant trying to be on my side, you know. And obviously there were moments where this person had my back and this person had my full view, and it was just. But then it just depends on audience, like where they're sitting. All right, emotional prep. How do you prepare for live theater versus screen acting?
The emotional prep, I don't think has to be like, this is my emotional prep box and just what's in here is what works. I think for film is very much like, this is what I'm using. This is what I'm used for this medium. And I think for theater is very much like, okay, I prepared. I have all of the emotional prep for whatever, for my character, his story, his Uta Hagens, whatever.
Right.
But when you get to the stage, it's like, okay, it's like if a teacher grabbed your homework and was like, okay, great, thank you, go.
Now you just gotta trust
yourself. Now you just, fuck it, do it. You
gotta trust what you got. For me, for theater, it's, I agree with you. I think there's more preparation that goes into theater.
Yeah.
As well as just like warming up. You know, like before a show, you have to warm up your body, you have to warm up your voice.
Yeah.
You know, because you use your voice so much and you really have to project that you don't want to strain it then, especially if you have like, I don't know how many shows you're doing, you can't strain your voice.
6 shows in one day for high schoolers.
Anyways, so yeah, you have to like prepare your body because it's it's physical and it can be draining, you know, for your voice. So you have to really like prepare yourself for that. Whereas with film, it's a little bit harder to kind of prep. I'd say, like you said, you know, like before everything, you know, memorize your lines, know obviously what your character is doing and why and all that stuff. But when it comes to like physically prepping before, it's hard because you never know when they're going to film you.
Exactly.
You know, I have had times when people are like, okay, we're going to start filming you in 20 minutes. And then in 5 minutes, they're like, all right, you're up.
Ready. Yeah.
We're ready. Everything's set up. Let's go. We're on
or
a
even
schedule,
like
whatever.
2 hours later.
And it's like, oh my God, now I didn't have time to, I don't know, stretch my hips or, you know, do some mobility or anything like that. I just didn't have time for it.
Yeah.
So I would say with film, it's more immediate. You know, you just have to get there emotionally, physically, mentally. You just have to get there as fast as you can.
When theater, it's like if the stage manager gets there like 30 minutes, actually 2, it's never going to happen.
Right. That never happens.
You have that luxury.
You know, like, okay, doors open at 6:30, play starts at 7. So you have
30 minutes to get there.
If anything, they'll be like, we're running 5 minutes behind. We're still waiting for a couple people. But with film, it really is that drastic where it's like, oh, schedule was put back. We're actually going to be filming in 2 hours now.
You have to warm up the body, the voice, the mind, everything, because whatever it is, oh my God, it's the timer. See, I told you I was going to get scared. I think of that moment in like right now. That could happen. That could happen in the theater.
Right.
Like, a fucking phone can go off, and it's like you just gotta be in it. You just gotta go with it, and it's completely disconnected. It's like, okay, get back in there. Get back in there. What's my toolbox? And in film, it's like it's in the moment. It's right now. It's a schedule.
You just have to. You have to, especially with comedy, they always tell us like, you know, if an audience member sneezes or if they drop something, you know, don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it. Just like, use it. Be like, bless you.
Yeah, and not necessarily you have to do it for every show.
And you don't have to. It's just like if it feels right, if you have that impulse to like interact just for a split second, do it.
Yeah.
You know, and like I've seen so many times actors on stage, you know, like they would be acting whatever, and like maybe something on the table would like knock down or fall, and they would like see it with their eyes, but they would ignore it. It's like,
even if it's comedy or drama, that happens in real life.
It happens in real life. You drop something, what are you going to do? You're going to pick it up, right? It'd be weird if you're just kind of pretending like it didn't happen. Yeah. It totally did. So, to wrap things up, in conclusion, do you prefer stage or film?
Stage. I think stage is... For me, I got into acting and performing because I want to have a connection with the audience. And having that immediacy, I think, in stage is my number one reason. Like, I'm with you, you're with me, we're on this train ride together, and let's hold on. You know what? Fuck it. We're gonna go on this together. Be whatever genre.
Personally, it depends on the genre.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing comedy, I much prefer to do it live, stage, in front of an adult audience.
Okay.
Whereas, whereas if I'm doing a drama,
Mhm.
I prefer to do TV and film.
Okay.
Because I feel, based on my strengths and weaknesses, I perform better
Yeah.
with TV and film. You know, just how it works and the camera and all this. I just much prefer it. I much prefer it. I much prefer TV and film. But again, like I think whether an actor prefers the stage or the screen really depends on their strengths and weaknesses as an individual. Because I really do believe that stage and screen is so different in terms of the skills you need to be amazing at it. So, yeah.
Very nice.
That's my conclusion. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Fernando, thank you so much
I'm so
for
tired
being my guest.
No, thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Have a great day.
Peace.
Oh, what time is it?
3:51. It's fine. Scared the shit out of me. I told you it was gonna scare the shit out of me.